I should say this before I get to my book reviews. You know, I say book review because that's what I'm talking about, my experience with the book. But sometimes people will come to my channel who haven't, just they're new to my channel, and they'll hear me say a book review of this or that. And rightly so, I imagine they're like, dude, do you ever say anything bad about a book? But I should really clarify, I'm not a booktuber. Okay, I don't, when I do book reviews, it's not about, let me take this new piece of fiction and all right, I'm going to tell you all the good in it and I'm going to tell you the bad in it and this, and that. What I do with my channel is, because I, told you just a little while ago how I don't like to play the game of like calling out all the crap that Hollywood does, yet still clinging to every little new thing it gives us to see, and here's my review of it. I like to just walk away from that crap and to try and give people, bring stories to people's attention, whether old retro stories that they might have missed, or movies or whatever, or books that are being, that maybe flew under the radar, or new books too, or whatever, and bring those to people's attention. So if I read a new book that I don't really like, I'm not really going to do a review of it. I'll talk about it. Like I talked about some of Dan Simmons' work that I was reading last Halloween, or Halloween before that. And I was like, man, because I read Children of Summer or something like that. I forgot the name of it, which was okay. It was good. So I started trying to read the rest of the trilogy, and it just sucked. I just couldn't even get through the second book. It's like, dude. So I mean, I'll say stuff about that, but I'm not going to give it a proper review because it's just not worth my time. I'd rather do a proper review about stuff that I think you guys might really be interested in. And first up, I'm going to talk about The Ship. Doug Brode's The Ship. Now, Doug Brode is the one who did Shelley. And I talked about Shelley, and I gave it a glowing review because I dearly loved it. He is going to... actually, let me pull it up here because I should have had this ready. Apparently, in StreamYard now, you're able to share image files, which is new. You weren't able to do that before. You had to have it as a browser window or something like that. But apparently, I'm going to test it here and see if you can do image file. Apparently you can. Cool. There's the Doug Brode has just released the cover for the second book in the Shelley. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy in the end or a series of longer. That'd be great. But Shelley was a story of the synthetic, the android. Basically, they call them synths, but they were. She's the one. It's in a future in which synthetics are a thing. There's everything from sex bots to house cleaning bots to nanny bots for your children, or all kind of bots. And she worked for the government, and her job was to go after when an android goes rogue, if a synthetic ever starts to kill a human or breaks the law or whatever in such way, And it ended in a really cool way. I did a whole talk about it, and yeah, he's doing part 2 is coming out this summer. I'm going to try to have him on the channel to talk about that, maybe around, I forget what he said, July-ish or something like that. But there's the cover for part 2. But you can go ahead and get, first of all, the first one's just called Shelley. You can find that now. I should have put a link to it in the description below, but I'll do that when I cut this out as a video. But he was kind enough to send me his the other 3 books he did, which is a trilogy called The Ship Trilogy. And I picked it up. I forgot to I looked at, me with numbers. Like I said, I have dyscalculia, so I don't remember numbers at all very well. And I looked at when this was published, but then I promptly forgot it because it's a number. So I'm trying to find that again. This was published 2021. Okay. Is that right? Yeah. So anyway, but I think he'd written it a while before. But Doug Brode is a big X-Files fan. He's a big fan of a lot of the stories, the type of work we talk about on this channel. And as I said with Shelley, you're finding a writer here who just loves the story that he's telling, loves the art of storytelling, and just loves the story he's telling. So you're just going to get somebody really trying to tell the best story they can. And Shelley really was. It just, man, A+. There's a great Audible version of it too, read very well, that if you want to go check out that instead of, if you're not a person that can handle sitting there reading a book or don't have the time or whatever. But so I wanted to read these other books. Now, he had warned me. He sent me these, and he said, hey, I'm just, appreciate your reviews. I'm sending you these. And he said, he didn't send me to these for me to review. I'm just being honest that he sent them to me. But he didn't send these to me for me to review. But I was like, dude, if you send me your books, I'm going to review them. If it's something, if you're an author that I like your work, and I'm going to read it. And I did read it, so I want to review it. But he warned me, he said, now these books, just to, they're not going to be like on the level that Shelley is. He said, these are my books when I was first learning how to write novels, going from screenplays to novels, because he'd worked in television. I think he was a storyboard artist too. He'd worked on some really kind of cool stuff. If you look up his name on IMDb, But he'd written a lot of story treatments and scripts and whatnot as well. And he said that these 3 books, this Ship trilogy, was kind of his way of learning to write, go to novel writing from screenplay writing. So when he said that, I was a little nervous to read them at first. Honestly, I was thinking, uh-oh, does that mean I'm getting like I was ready for like, self-publisher's first venture kind of novel, which can be ugly, That's not what this was at all. I really enjoyed it. What I think he was talking about is the novel itself, and I've only read the first one here. This novel reads like a miniseries. I would be shocked one day if Netflix or one of the streaming services didn't pick up the rights to this to do it as a miniseries, because it does. The story reads like a miniseries, as opposed to something like Shelley, which is more of a inline, ordered kind of story where we stick with certain character perspectives and kind of, stick through it. But that's not a bad thing at all. There are plenty of great novels out there that have this sort of mini-series epic-like feel to it. And what I mean by that is you have sort of an omniscient narrator. You are in characters' perspectives, but you jump around to a lot of different characters' perspectives. You go to different scenes and whatnot, but it's all unified by the event of this ship and the ship's appearance. So it's not randomized. It's not like, think about a good miniseries that you watch on some streaming service that's really, it just hooks you and you keep coming back because you want to find out what's going on, but it's going to give you a bunch of different sort of plot lines, and each plot line is only advanced a certain amount at a time because it has to take time to jump you to the other plot lines as well, so you get the whole story as it's being told and it comes out all good in the end. That's a legitimate way of storytelling, and it's the miniseries type way of storytelling. You see it a lot on television, so I think that's what he meant when he said he was kind of learning how to write a novel as opposed to miniseries. But I don't see that as a problem at all. I don't think that's a weakness for this novel at all. It's a great novel. Now, I mean, any reader, I know myself, I wouldn't want to read miniseries. I wouldn't want to read novels that feel like a miniseries over and over and over again. Nothing but those kind of novels. Obviously, if I had to only pick one, I'd pick the more uniform novel plotline. But that doesn't mean that these aren't great, novels like this. I mean, Stephen King's written some great miniseries-like novels. I think Anne Rice's Queen of the Damned was probably the first one I ever read that felt like it was a practical miniseries. It was just, giving you the, all these kind of different perspectives and so forth. But the gist behind this is it looks science fiction, right? And it is. We're dealing with the aliens and the ship and all of that, but it's also very horror. And it felt very much like an 80s Stephen King, like at his best type horror too. That's one of the vibes I got from it. It was really interesting and fascinating. I don't want to give away, because you need to go into the book to really experience the book and enjoy it. You need to go into it thinking you're just dealing with a spaceship. There's some sort of an abduction, thing going on. That's what you need to deal with when you're going in. I'll just say it's so much more than that. So much more is going on than you think is going on. And not in a way that feels contrived or like, dude, how can you even make all these dots connect? No, it actually does connect. And you discover a little bit more to the story, as you go through. The characters are engaging. You get this one main character, the woman who's abducted, who's I imagine, well, I don't want to give anything away, but it's cool. I'm looking forward to reading the second one. I'm folding in a lot of Star Wars EU stuff right now, which I'll talk about in a second. So I don't know when I'll get to the second one, but I'm going to read the second one because apparently the second book, The Ship's Revenge, takes place in the 50s. And I am a sucker for that old sort of atomic punk era, the Roswell and the kind of 50s and 60s. That's one of the reasons I love the first, the original series of Star Trek and stuff. Twilight Zone, just that old, I love that kind of classic sci-fi atomic age feel. And apparently the second book takes place in that era, so I'm excited about that. But I'd recommend these. I'll put the link again, especially when I cut this out as its own video. And I think these are on Audible too. So I'll try and find a link to the Audible ones as well. These were good, and he wrote this whole trilogy before he wrote Shelley. Shelley was amazing. I've already done the stream of that, and he's doing the sequel to Shelley. I don't know if he's going to come back to this universe. I haven't read the second and third book yet, so it might just end in a way in which you can't come back to it. But my sense, though, just from hearing him talk about it, is that this is a closed-out trilogy. He's moving on from this. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it's a whole trilogy of books. So, if you're looking for something to kind of a long-term read, check out The Ship by Doug Brode. It's good. And it's one of those books that you just kind of have to settle in for. It's not a quick little summer beach read. You have to settle into it and let it really take you on a ride for a while. And those kind of books are fun to just live in for a while. Those sort of long, engaged books, engaging and twisting and turning books that you really have to kind of read and think about and go back to. Those are fun just to kind of live in that world for a while and let it take you on the ride. So, recommend The Ship by Brode.